Let me ask you a question. Are you serious about exploding your podcast listener base? Yes? Perhaps you feel like you're throwing spaghetti on the wall trying to do that. If that's you, I have the answer for you in this video. And in this video, you are going to learn a few things. Number one, the exact sequence in which you should be doing your podcast marketing and why it matters. Number two, the 4-tiered traffic pyramid that will help you reach a new unlimited podcast audience. And number three, how to strategically activate the content that you create on your social media and your podcast website. If you are an expert looking for the best advice on how to grow your podcast audience, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video. My name is Deidre Shen, the CEO and co-founder of Capsho, the world's first AI-powered podcast copywriter. I have been working with experts who podcast, and cumulatively, we've banked over $1.6 million in sales through podcasting. And I myself did over $200,000 in my first year podcasting, because I stumbled upon all of these little known secrets. So let's get into the traffic pyramid so that you can use that to explode your podcast listens. Okay, so let me take you through the traffic pyramid. And this is a strategy that I use literally every day. In fact, my marketing team is structured according to this framework. It's structured around the 4 tiers or 4 steps of this framework. And they implement this day in and day out to promote and grow both my podcast and Capsho, my actual business, right? Okay, so there are 4 tiers to the traffic pyramid. So the first is passive organic marketing. The second is active organic marketing. The third is leveraging other people's audiences. And the fourth is paid ads. And I want to be clear. So really how you should be thinking about it is it's a pyramid. And as I went through those tiers, you scale up that pyramid. And so it is a little bit of a sequential strategy, right? Where you start at the bottom and you work your way up. So let's start at the bottom with passive organic marketing. This is where you are creating your organic content. And it can be any organic content. Okay, so obviously for us podcasters, a big part of it is our podcast content. We also have our social media content, our blog posts or show notes, our evergreen emails, right? Any type of content that we are creating organically sits in this tier. Now, there are 2 types of content that we need to be creating. The first is what I call trust accelerators. The purpose of trust accelerators are to create trust. You know more than anyone that as an expert, your audience needs to come to know, like, and trust you before they are going to invest in you, your program, your service, right? And a big part of creating that trust is 1, the amount of time that they spend with you, and 2, what they perceive you can provide them. Now, if you've listened to this podcast from the very first episode, you would know that I am a big subscriber to the 7-hour rule that Daniel Priestley talks about in his book, Oversubscribed, that someone needs to spend at least 7 hours with you to become a client and a raving fan. And a podcast is one of the best ways that you can compel your audience to clock those 7 hours with you. So we're already well on our way to create that trust with our audience, because again, everyone listening to this has a podcast. Now, in terms of what our audience perceives we can provide them or help them with, that's going to come down to experiences and the things that you have learned. That is, are you someone who actually walked the walk, failed, picked yourself back up, and learned all the things along the way that can help fast track your audience's own learning in this space? That's what they're thinking, right? And the only way that you're going to be able to communicate that to them is through your stories, through storytelling. Storytelling is the simplest and most efficient way to accelerate trust. And that will come as no surprise to you. As podcasters, we know the value of storytelling to accelerate the trust that our audience forms with us. But if you want more info on how to do this for your podcast, then I would encourage you to listen to episode 9 of this podcast on up-leveling your episode to hook your listener in, because I go through storytelling in that episode. Okay, so that's the first type of content. Now, the other type of content that we need to be creating in our passive organic marketing are content honey traps. I think we mentioned this in every single episode of this podcast. But content honey traps are essentially the promotional pieces of content that you are using to get your audience to your content trust accelerators, to your podcast episode, right? Content honey traps is a system designed to compel your dreamiest audience and your buyers to follow you through your front end funnel, from your social media to your podcast, and then onto your email list, to your conversion event, sales call. Right now, I have created 8 mental models around content honey traps. Models like the cliffhanger, the paradox, the jaw dropper, the marvel, the sharer, the big reveal, the rebel, and the boxer. We go into detail on each of these mental models across the first 2 episodes of this podcast. But the best thing is that you don't need to even know what these are and how to use them. And you know why? Because these content honey trap models, all 8 of them, are built into Capsho. Yes, that is Capsho Superpower. It was designed to help you create episode titles, descriptions, social media posts, promotional emails that create that curiosity in your audience so that they have to go listen to your podcast episode. And it used the 8 content honey trap mental models I've mentioned to do that. Create a whole host of these organic pieces of content from just an upload of your podcast or episode audio file. It's pretty cool, right? So by using Capsho, your content honey traps are also done. Right, so that's your passive organic marketing, made up of your content trust accelerators, which you're already doing by creating your podcast, and your content honey traps, which if you just get Capsho to do it, they're done for you, right? So that's the first tier, your passive organic marketing. But we're not done yet. Okay, the reason I call this content passive is because a lot of times what we do is we put all this effort into creating this amazing content. We release it into the world, and then we sit back. We sit back and we wait for our audience to stumble upon us and find us. It's insane. That is not what we should be doing. No, we are going to make this passive content active. Have it actually work for us. Sound good? We're all on board? Okay, so this is when we then get into the second tier of the traffic pyramid. What I call active organic marketing. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, it kind of depends on the platform that you're actually creating content for. Okay, so there are 2 types of platforms. One is search-based, the other is explore-based. So search-based platforms are the ones where a user has an intent, right? They're going onto these platforms to actually find something. Think Google, YouTube, Pinterest. They're going on those platforms and they're searching for something specific. Which is why SEO, search engine optimization, so optimizing our content for search, is so important to capitalize on these platforms. The other type of platforms, so explore-based platforms, are the ones where a user goes on to discover new things. They're just scrolling with no real intent in mind. And these platforms, you want to think Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. What we want to be doing on these platforms is 2 things. The first is to find a way to stop the scroll, and stop the scroll so that people actually watch, read, engage with our content. And funnily enough, I just want to digress a little bit here, but people's email inboxes, they have become a form of an explore-based platform. Because yes, while they may have opted in to be on your email list, they've done the same with likely hundreds of other businesses, service providers, other people out there as well. Which means that even with emails, we have to become masters at stopping the scroll, at getting people to open our email. So that's the first, right? Because we want to stop the scroll. The second thing we want to be doing on these explore-based platforms is to use it for what it was actually designed for. And that is to be social. The only way we're going to be able to increase our visibility on the amazing content that we've created in that first tier in passive organic marketing
the only way that we can actually get it active, working for us on these explore-based platforms, is to actually engage and participate with people in conversations rather than just using it to push out content. And if you want to learn how to do that, then head over to episode 3 of this podcast, where I go over how to actually do what I call visibility growth hacking. Okay, so that first tier, passive organic marketing, second tier, active organic marketing, and then that leads us to the third tier of the traffic pyramid, which is leveraging other people's audiences. One of the things I love about podcasting and being in this podcasting community is how open everyone is to collaborations, networking, helping each other out. And that is exactly what this tier of the traffic pyramid is all about. How do you find collaborations with other people who have the same audience as you, the same audience that you want to be building? That's what we want to be doing more of in this tier. And I will in later episodes go into how to do specific things around that. But some examples is obviously you can swap interviews on each other's podcasts. You can hold a virtual summit. You can run a contest. There are a whole host of ways that you can actually collaborate with other people so that you are leveraging their audience. And as much as possible, you want it to be a win-win, right? That's for everyone involved. So that is the third tier. And then the fourth tier, so the last tier, the very top of the pyramid, is scaling through paid ads. Once we have content that is working and we're getting a good amount of traction, we can put fuel on that fire by scaling it with paid ads. And this can be Facebook, Google, YouTube, podcast players, sponsoring other shows. There are a whole host of ways that we can start scaling our shows and our businesses with paid ads. That is what this tier is all about. And so what we do is we put out our passive organic marketing, we do active organic marketing, and we see what content actually works. What are people actually engaging with? What are they listening to? What do they want more of? That is the content that we actually scale with paid ads. That's our whole strategy. And that's why this is kind of sequential. You can start to see why this traffic pyramid is the way that it is. So it's pretty simple, right? Like seriously, if you can tattoo these 4 tiers, these 4 steps into your brain so that every day you're ensuring you're doing something in at least 2 of these tiers every day, then there is no way that your podcast cannot grow. So to summarize, there are 4 tiers to the traffic pyramids. Passive organic marketing, where we are creating our content. Active organic marketing, where we are doing everything we can to ensure that our content is visible to the right people. Leveraging other people's audiences, where we collaborate in a way to get visibility to other people's audiences. And finally, scaling with paid ads.
In the comments if you happen to learn something new through this video. And if you want to hear the full story behind how I stumbled upon this little known secret, then listen to episode 12 of the Grow My Podcast show. I will leave the link for that below. This video out if you want to learn why just repurposing your podcast content is an immediate ROI killer and what you need to do instead. And this one down here, if you want to know exactly what to do in your show notes to make your podcast incredibly easy for your ideal audience to find.